Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Big Ten podcast. I'm Mark Givler, joined as always by Chip Minnick. It's another weekend reaction show. We're a day late on this, had something come up yesterday, but ready to roll here today on Tuesday as we recap another interesting weekend in the Big Ten. Some playoff, I think, situations were kind of made or broken over the weekend. Things are getting pretty clear on who still has a chance and who doesn't. And I think this coming weekend, which we'll get to probably on Thursday, will tell us even more. But we're starting to get a bit of a more clear picture on things, Chip. One game that kind of had some impact there, Michigan and Washington. We knew this was kind of a must-win for Michigan, and we thought it kind of was for Washington just because of their difficult remaining schedule. So we kind of felt this might be an elimination game. Michigan pulls away late and played a really sound game. I thought Bryce Underwood was very good. The defense played very well. I was once again wrong about the game, so I told everyone, I said, I'm going to pick Washington, so everyone go run and pick Michigan. I hope you all did that and continue to do that as I pick the wrong result for all of Michigan's games this year pretty much. Chip, just your thoughts on that Michigan-Washington game. It just seems like we get a different Michigan team every week. I don't know what to make of them yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I picked Michigan. I thought it would be closer. I will say that Washington, what was very surprising, Devon Williams had played well up until this game. In a span of 5 passing attempts, he had 3 interceptions. So, I mean, kudos to the Michigan defense for capitalizing upon those mistakes. I just thought that Michigan, their ground game, I thought Jordan Marshall did a really good job filling in for Justice Haynes. So I have no idea how serious that injury to Haynes is, but Marshall certainly demonstrated that he's capable of carrying the load if Michigan needs him to. But getting back to it, yeah, Michigan, I think their defense is they capitalized upon Washington's mistakes. Like you said, Mark, I think these kind of games and this coming weekend, I know we'll talk about these more on Thursday, that this coming weekend, I think we're starting to get into that elimination type category. Michigan, they won, so they're still alive. Washington technically is, but their path became so much more narrow, and we'll talk about them later on this week. But yeah, overall, I thought Michigan, they did what they needed to do to win. And I thought Bryce Underwood, he's starting to make strides offensively and maturity in terms of that Michigan passing offense.
Yeah, I thought it was one of Underwood's better games. I still don't like their receivers. They still drop balls on them. They don't make the plays you should be making for your young quarterback all the time. But I thought Underwood showed good decision-making and accuracy, some of the better decision-making and accuracy he's shown to this point, and starting to maybe click for him. So that was a really good win for Michigan, who, yes, remains alive for a playoff berth. Probably have to win out, but who knows? I mean, like I said, I continue to think there's going to be a 9-3 team in this playoff when it's all said and done, and with all the things that keep happening in the SEC, beating each other, et cetera. That's going to be made possible. The ACC is an absolute train wreck right now. The Big 12 is an absolute train wreck right now. Are either of those leagues even going to get 2 teams in? I mean, that's something that'll be figured out here over the next few weeks. But it's certainly those are 2 leagues that are doing their best to only get 1 bid, but seemingly every weekend with the things that are happening in those leagues. But yeah, I think Washington's. Again, if Washington wins out, they're clearly in. But the problem is winning out at this point is going to be extraordinarily difficult with what their schedule has left on it. But Oregon, USC, and Illinois, I think, are all left on the table. I think 2 of those are road games, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be a tough finish for Washington to try and run the table to get in the playoff. Speaking of USC. Trojans got Jeremiah Loved on Saturday night. Big time performance by, in my opinion, the second best offensive player in college football, behind Jeremiah Smith. And boy, was he good on Saturday night. And that Notre Dame offense is rolling. And again, you wonder, if you're a team that's in good shape for the playoffs, you are probably not loving what Notre Dame's doing right now and what Notre Dame has left on their schedule, because that would be a really tough team to host in a round one game. I mean, that'd be a tough draw.
Yeah, I completely agree. I will say that was a game that I was flipping back and forth on Peacock between that and Penn State and Iowa. But on this topic, USC, we just mentioned it. They're not eliminated yet, but their path has become narrow. They have 2 losses now, and later on this season they play Oregon, they play UCLA. Say what you will about UCLA, they're not a team that I think anyone should be excited to be playing. I think UCLA, they still have some issues, but I think they're playing with a lot of confidence, and they're just having fun out there. You can just see it. But getting back to USC, the issues that I think you and I, as well as other people who follow Big Ten football, that we were concerned about, that we thought maybe that they are taking a step in the right direction. They completely manifested themselves against Notre Dame. They were able to do the USC defense were able to do an effective job limiting the damage of Michigan's running game. And then, like you said, Jeremiah Love, he had a game. So now it's back to the drawing board. Now with USC, they have a bye, so I don't know what they can do to kind of address that, but they've got to get some things figured out, because down the home stretch, like I said, they have basically no room. They have little wiggle room for error in their remaining games.
Yeah, I think their offense is legit. Their receivers are really good, getting pretty good quarterback play. Offensive line seems to be playing pretty well for them, but this was the toughness thing we've talked about. It got, it was a little bit of weather there in South Bend, and they ran for like 300 yards at like 8 yards a pop and just tore into that USC defense. And it's going to be the same old questions about USC's defense and, can they step up and be tough and stop the run in these big games? But they're in a similar boat to Washington, where if they win out, they're fine, but winning out is going to be much easier said than done with that late game. They got a game at Oregon, so they have some hurdles here now to get into the playoff. So you mentioned you were watching Iowa, Penn State. Oh boy. Again, not that Penn State's offense did a lot of, not that Penn State's offense really helped their defense that much, but Iowa didn't punt in the second half. Now, 1 or 2 of those possessions where the defense kind of put them in field position areas, but they had a 75-yard drive in the fourth quarter. You're paying your defensive coordinator $3 million a year. You're not getting key stops in the fourth quarter against an Iowa offense that's, just okay at best. The weapons, you can't throw the ball. You don't have the weapons. Getting a really good game from Katron Allen. That goes by the wayside. Are they going to make a bowl game at this point?
Oh, that's a really good question. Right now, I would say, if I had the magic 8 ball in front of me, I would say appears doubtful, trying to make light of that. But in all seriousness, I think Penn State, there's just a ton of things that they need to address. Now, I want to give some credit to Ethan Grunkemeyer. I thought for his first start, granted, he threw 2 interceptions, which helped Iowa's cause. But I had mentioned last week, I thought that was going to be a tough assignment going up against a Phil Parker coordinated defense anyway at night. But you're right. I think Katron Allen right now is pretty much the extent of the Penn State offense. They really don't have much of a downfield passing game. They didn't have much of one before Drew Aller was hurt, and I think Grunkemeyer.
They just don't have weapons.
So I think it's going to be a real difficult thing offensively. Defensively, what I'd be concerned about if Penn State is Mark Gronowski had he did most of his damage as a runner. So if you're an upcoming Penn State opponent, not that I believe that every quarterback, for example, Julian saying it's not that he can't run, but I think he's kind of more in that reluctant to run. But if you're an upcoming Penn State opponent, you have to, I think you're doing a disservice to your team's offense if you don't say, hey, when you drop back, if there's, ample opportunity for you to pick up yards, do it. Because for whatever reason, Jim Knowles, I mean, he let many a time Gronowski, and he capitalized upon it, which led to Iowa coming back and taking the lead. Gronowski, with his legs, was able to capitalize, and Iowa won that game. Now, I also want to give props to Penn State for I thought Iowa, for whatever reason, why they tried a 63-yard field goal on the very last play of the first half that Penn State capitalized. I mean, they blocked the field goal. They had that nice bounce that they turned it into a touchdown. Why Kirk Ferentz decided to do that instead of just, hey, let's just go into the half with the lead, that kind of put them behind unnecessarily. But yeah, I think, to your point, Mark, Penn State, they've got to use this upcoming bye week to try and figure out what they can do offensively to make it easier for Grunkemeyer, since he's going to be piloting that offense the remainder of the season. And right now, I would say, getting to a bowl game is highly, highly doubtful.
Their next two opponents are Ohio State and Indiana.
And then that would put them
at 3-6, right?
That would put them at 3-6. And if I'm not mistaken, just kind of, going down the path of, like their other games that they, when it comes to, Penn State's schedule, I know that their last game of the season is against Rutgers, and Rutgers was taken to town by Oregon, which we expected. They have to go on the road to Michigan State, which you never know. I mean, I'll just say it. It's like, Michigan State was handled easily by Indiana, but sometimes Michigan State can be a different team when they're at home. They have to host Nebraska. Now, granted, Nebraska was handled easily by Minnesota this past Friday. And then, like I said just a moment ago, at Rutgers. So that's kind of, they would have, if it holds up, 3-6, they need to just win those last three, which is not easy, just to get to 6-6. What a fall from what the preseason expectations were for Penn State.
Yeah, just insane. I mean, so many people thought they were the number one team in the country coming into the season. Wow. Okay, so we also see UCLA get another one, in Maryland let another one go by the wayside there late. It's, did UCLA, we ask this every week with Maryland, did Maryland lose this or did UCLA win this?
I think UCLA won this. That's just my opinion. As somebody, I have to confess, I didn't watch it from start to finish, but the beauty of, like the Big Ten network, like, football in 60 and things like that, being able to watch the games. It was looking like, okay, this was looking like overtime. And then UCLA, they were doing what they could to get themselves in position to try and kick what turned out to be a game-winning field goal. Now, the key part that I don't think anybody in this could, you can kind of turn this around like that Maryland lost it, that nobody expected UCLA to break off a long run in the final seconds. We were talking under a minute, and UCLA had a long run down, very close to scoring. And then, with only 4 seconds remaining on the clock, they kicked the field goal to put them up 20-17. So UCLA, they have a confidence about them that they did not have in the first few weeks of the season. So it's great to see. I realize we'll talk more about UCLA this coming Thursday when they go to Indiana. Hashtag, I think, back to reality. But that's, again, we'll talk more about that on Thursday.
Yeah, it's going to be all kinds of interesting because I believe UCLA's next two games are at Indiana and at Ohio State. Oh, I'm sorry. No, they're at Indiana.
And then they host
It'll
Nebraska.
be at Ohio State. It'll be at Ohio State in a couple weeks.
Correct. So they've got.
Okay,
it's uphill for them to make it to a bowl. It's very. It would be the greatest story in college football if it were to come to pass, because when you look at UCLA's remaining schedule at Indiana, they play Nebraska at home, and I'll just say it right now. I mean you never know. Going to Ohio State, that looks like a loss. They host Washington, you never know there. And then USC, I just said it a few moments ago. I'm not going to backtrack from it. You never know. UCLA, they might have it. So right now, UCLA has 3 wins. I don't know, like out of that, I would say maybe Nebraska because it's a home game, maybe Washington because it's a home game, and maybe USC. So that would get them at 6-6, which, that would be a tremendous story. But I think, if they can get to 5-7 compared to how they started at 0-4, that would still be a really good story.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a brutal, tough finish for them after that bad start. So they really put themselves behind the 8 ball there. Maryland, it's just more of the same, though, for me, for Maryland. I mean, it's another winnable game that they've let slip away. And now it's the same thing with them. It's like, are they going to make a bowl game? It's kind of the question for them because they're letting this get away from them themselves as well. And, do they make a coaching change, or are there so many jobs out there right now available and some more probably coming available that maybe this isn't the year you want to be in the job market? I mean, that'd be the only argument for me in not making a coaching change if I'm Maryland, is that do you want to wait until next year because this year's job market is so competitive and maybe you get a better candidate next year? But I don't know. Something's got to give there because this is another mid to late season collapse by the Terps. But let's wrap this up here with just Wisconsin. 34-0, just lifeless performance. The front seven seemed to play hard, but they gave up 400 yards and through the air almost. They didn't even I think they threatened to score once at the end of the game when the backups were in, and they decided not to kick a field goal and go for a touchdown, which I respect that. I mean, kicking that field goal would have almost been pathetic. But then, McIntosh comes out and gives Fickell kind of a vote of confidence. It wasn't like a full vote of confidence, but it was like an 80-90% vote of confidence. What is going on there? Do they fire him after the Oregon game, going into the bye week, as we've kind of talked about before? Or is it going to be one of those things where McIntosh has to be fired first because he's not going to fire Fickell? I mean, this is getting off the rails for the Badgers. They got to do something here.
I realize we're talking about completely different universities, different circumstances, but the tone deafness of Chris McIntosh, what this reminds me of, and I realize completely different set of circumstances, it reminds me of over 10 years ago when Michigan recognized the fact that, okay, they needed to move on, not only in terms of with their head coach, but they had to get rid of Dave Brandon because he was as much of a part of the problem as what they had on the football field. Like that it just seemed like a complete disconnect from reality. And I think if I'm a Wisconsin booster and I'm being asked to donate more money to basically put good money after bad, like with the idea that, okay, that's going to all of a sudden make things better. I think that's going to be part of this situation. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Never want to see people lose their jobs. I know that's the harsh reality of that kind of a business, but I think the Wisconsin boosters are going to probably say, all right, we're not going to give you anything until we see a change in the leadership in the athletic department. And then they bring in a new head coach, because I look at Wisconsin's schedule and I can't imagine them winning another game, especially with what you're seeing. I mean, we're talking 2 straight shutouts. I'm going to say it right now. I know we'll talk about it more on Thursday. It's going to be 3 this coming weekend. when Wisconsin goes out to Oregon. I can't imagine with a straight face going to a high profile, deep pocketed booster and saying, we need more money for the football program. It's just not going to fly.
No, I agree. And boy, we sat here, we talked about this a few weeks ago. We said, man, 2-10 is on the table here. And we kind of 2-10 is on the table, but they'll get somebody. I don't think they're going to get anybody.
No, not at all.
If you watched Minnesota this weekend and you watch Wisconsin this weekend and you think Wisconsin's going to beat Minnesota, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
I don't think they're going to get anybody. I think they're going to go 2-10.
Yeah.
And that is just unacceptable at Wisconsin. That's unacceptable.
Right.
I know that job has gotten harder with the league expanding and more good teams in the league, and you're not in the West anymore, and you don't get to kind of beat up, but that is still a place you got to win 8 or 9 games. Like you can't go 2-10 at Wisconsin. That's just, it's an impossibility. And people kind of heads have to roll when that happens.
Right. And I'll say this much, when it comes to some of the things that have been put out in terms of social media, what I'm kind of gathering is it's not so much the players as much as the facilities that need some work. And again, I'm not there. I think it's one of these things where, when you're asking your donors, okay, well, we need, better facilities. All right. I can see why there might be a rolling of the eyes, but if that's what it will take in combination with, hey, we need a new athletic director. I really do. I really believe that Barry Alvarez, he's been trying to be, I think, as supportive as he possibly can from behind the scenes. He's happily retired. I think, and maybe I'm mistaken, that Chris McIntosh was kind of his guy because he played for Alvarez back in the day. So I think he's trying to be supportive, but I have every belief that people that are the contributors to Wisconsin athletics are saying to Barry Alvarez, we've got to make a change, and Chris McIntosh can't stay.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see how they do against Oregon, if that's a blowout, if there's any fallout immediately coming after that, as jobs seem to be opening left and right here now. The last couple of floodgates are kind of opening here a little bit, and will continue to, I'm sure, over the next few weeks. There's going to be more jobs coming available. There's a lot of guys on the hot seat right now. Parting thoughts from the weekend. Ohio State, Indiana looking pretty strong at the top.
They are. And we'll talk about it in greater detail on Thursday when we do our preview of the upcoming games. But I'll tell you what, Matt Rule was breathing fire at his press conference about the performance or the lack thereof against Minnesota. I mean, he was, I'm sure that there were some very loud, profane phrases directed not only at the players, but I really do believe at his coaching staff. Like the impression I'm getting is that the coaching staff kind of thought like, oh, Minnesota's not anything really to worry about, and that they kind of overlooked, didn't really respect them, whatever it was. But Matt Rule was just kind of, you could tell that he was embarrassed as well as he should be by that performance by Nebraska last week. So it'll be interesting to see how Nebraska rebounds this coming week. But Minnesota, they've got a big game of their own that they have to be ready for. We'll talk about it on Thursday.
Yeah, and that was a big hit to Nebraska. Like Nebraska was in the playoff mix.
Yes.
That was a big hit for them. That was a big hit. That's another program that's going to have to find a way to win out and maybe get some help. So, yeah, that was a tough one for them. Called into question his team's toughness.
Yes.
At the Monday press conference, that they didn't step up to the plate when Minnesota started to assert themselves physically. And so that was always, you never quite know how that's going to go. Usually the hope is you're going to get a real response off of that. So we'll see what happens, but that's always interesting when a coach kind of questions the physical toughness of his team. So clearly some things there to work on for them, and we'll see if they're up to the challenge here this week. But I think that'll do it for this one. We're going to come back here in just 2 days. We'll have our weekend preview. talk about which games we think are elimination games. I think what we probably should do also on Thursday is kind of give an update on like, who's still in it for the playoff race for the Big Ten. Like who's in, who's out, who's in, who's out, and who still has a chance type of thing. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the upcoming games this weekend, some good ones on the schedule. But thanks everyone again for watching and listening. And again, we'll be back here soon.